Hello. Hey, it's been a little while. Been a lot happening, I guess. Just haven't done the video about the kind of IVF process, but there was just all this stuff that was coming out, I guess, with the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. And I watched one of the interviews with, I think, one of his associates. Was it Leslie Wexner? That's his name. And I kind of like, at first I was like wondering, there's a lot of people commenting on the video and his deposition and the interview with him about what he knew about what Jeffrey was doing, and I kind of disagree with a lot of the commentary. And the reason I disagree with that is because I actually worked in the music industry for a while with someone who, I'd been advised wasn't, of the best character, but we kind of got together based on his experience within the music industry and his ability to do festivals and his ability to, well, he said, to run businesses really effectively. And it actually took me, I think, about 4 years. I mean, this guy was, he was very intelligent, but he wasn't the most. He was pretty crook. But it took me a while and to figure out that it was all pretty much just like a bit of a scam. Like, well, it wasn't a scam in the sense he didn't see it as a scam, but the things that he said came out a lot later on that he just made up so much stuff, but you don't know that at the time. And one of the things that con artists do really effectively, and that's why they call them con, because the confidence tricks is that they can confidently do things to get you to believe something which probably not, which is not true. It's exaggerated or inflated or just straight out lies. And they use confidence tricks and they use strategies to get you involved and entice you into certain business dealings. And later on, you find out you've been duped or conned or tricked. That a lot of the things that you were told were not true. There were, I guess, in the music industry, it's a little bit different because in some cases and well, many cases, it is pretty extravagant and wild, and it can get out of control. And I kind of fell into the trap. And it was only after I figured out, much later, about 4 years of the issues around what I was doing wrong, that I realized that, like any good business, you've got to be on top of everything. And one of the things I realized at that time was there was just so much. I started to grow this business to such a point where there was just so much going on where you just can't keep on top of it all, and you have to have other people to stay on top of things. And one of the things that Leslie in his deposition would say was like, I didn't know that. This is all new to me. I was managing. And one of the things that kind of makes sense, and he said this, he said he doesn't have really close friends. He had a lot of business associates, and because of that, he was a loner. And one of the things I learned while working with 16-hour days and running business full-time is that you don't really spend time with friends outside of that of your work. So you call them work colleagues, but they're not your friends because you always have some kind of interaction that revolves around a utility. So basically, one person might be managing your accounting, another person might be taking you from one place to another, and that they're paid to do what they're paid to do, and you're paid to do what you're paid to do. And I would have like 3 or 4 events running at the same time, and all of a sudden it's like other people are doing all these things. I have really no clue. I look at the numbers at the end of the day and I try to keep on top of it, but there's just so much going on that you can't. And you can imagine that someone that's reached such a high level, as someone like Leslie, who essentially was running numerous brands, and those, I think you said something like 10,000 stores. There's no way you can keep on top of that. And if you had personal affairs that were managed by an accountant and an attorney, and you had your local staff, your home staff, you had a home manager who would manage other staff, you don't know about everything that's going on, but you enlist the trust of these people to tell you the truth. One thing I found was that it's very easy to say something like, when I would see something, I would like trust the people that I would say, but it would be very easy looking back on it for someone just to kind of like exaggerate the truth. And one of the things that I'd seen done by my ex-business associate was just faking things, faking till you make it. Fake it till you make it was the kind of strategy. And the idea that Jeffrey Epstein would get someone to call, pretend to be someone, and say, this person's looking after my finances, and he's doing really well, and they would impersonate a really wealthy person, is not out of the realm of possibility at all. I think it's done very often. And also planting articles was done very often. So you just plant things to give yourself the get ahead of a narrative of some sorts, or present yourself to the I guess the community. And if you have these distribution networks, for instance, if you're say someone who owns a newspaper, it's very easy or very tempting to become corrupt and use that to an advantage outside of that, of say, telling the story of a particular truth, or being a journalist. So you can see that I think in this case, it was little by little. People like Jeffrey and Jazane would little by little incrementally go down this path of corruption, and they would just, they would seem to get away with it. Go, well, this is working. We're getting away with it. We're going to do more. It's like even unconscious, like you get away with something, you do more and more of it. There's a lot of videos about cyber criminals who scammed people who do say the same thing. He said, one particular guy, I remember saying that if I'd been caught early on, because he scammed some lady at the age of 17, if he was caught then and there, he wouldn't have done it. But because he felt like he could get away with it, it escalated. And that's very true. And you don't notice that it's happening until after the fact. And so there's, I don't know how true it is, but I see how it could be true, and I can relate to it, which is why you've got to be mindful of the reality of the fact that you could be around someone who's manipulating you, and you don't know it, right? It could be a good friend, it could be a business associate, it could be your spouse, your sister, your brother, your mother, your father. You don't know that to what extent you're being I guess, manipulated unconsciously and consciously. Sometimes it's worse because people feel like, there are certain types of personalities out there which find it hard to empathize or cannot empathize with other people, and they're more likely to do things that can hurt you. And that happened to me. I was like, my business associate, in a way kind of like stole from me through his lies and exaggerations. I lost probably about around $1 million, which in today's money doesn't seem like that much, but at the time it was just incredible for me. $500,000 to $1 million. And so I didn't really see it at the time. I was like, oh, that's a business loss, right? But the fact is that after a while, it was like I was bringing in resources to these businesses that, and I realized there's something not right here. There was a certain discomfort about the whole thing. And so at the end of the day, I figured this out. I went, oh, geez, I've got to disconnect. I disconnected. I looked after my health. I got better, and then I could see what it was, and it was just like a day and night, really, really day and night. It's like you're either in there in that kind of being manipulated place, and it turns around to you like seeing yourself and seeing how could I have been fooled, like that. You really go, how did I not see any of this, and why did I not do anything about what was happening as soon as the red flags started coming up? And and from my experience, those red flags were one after the other, and eventually it was like, I can't do this. I felt like I was starting to compromise with my own values, and I did in some cases, and I had to reassess the entire situation I was in. My business associate passed away. He died. He didn't really change much, to be honest. He ended up in a lot of trouble, and then kind of passed away in an unpleasant situation. We're going to go into details about what happened, but that he didn't really see himself in the mirror in a way where he could go, oh, okay, what I'm doing is probably not the best way to do things. But looking from the outside, if you've got somebody whose life revolves around something and they can't let it go, they will do everything they can to continue to do what they are doing in order to sustain that. So in the case, say you've got a business and it's failing, but you're going to compromise anything and everything to keep that business going, whether it's lying, cheating, defrauding people, then that I can see that okay, if that was me and I had no other way out, well, I'd just keep doing whatever I could to keep going. But, you know, fortunately for me, I've never had to be in that situation, right? But you could see from the outside, looking at someone whose, only livelihood in life surrounded his or her business, they would do anything and everything to keep that going. Even when it was, it was obvious that, he should have just, tried something different, right? An unfortunate story about how I think it's so easy for us to be manipulated without even knowing it. And I think for me, it was like looking at this situation, it's like, well, okay, well, how can I improve my, I guess, how can you be more vigilant? How can you be more mindful of these kind of situations? So yeah, look, I mean, yeah, it's really interesting to watch this and to see kind of like all these things come out. Watching, people's victim statements about their experience, about what happened, and how, how dangerous, how difficult and dangerous it is for people that were victims of these situations to speak up, because like I said, people whose livelihoods rely on their business and their reputation. If these victim stories come out and destroy their reputation, people will try and protect themselves at the expense of their victims, and that's what the state is there for, right? The state government, state police is there to protect victims. And I think in a way that's in the US with this whole story has come out, it's that there is an element where obviously people are protected, and to the extent they are protected, I'm not sure, but I think in the Western world, in Europe, probably a little bit better than in some other countries, which I probably won't name because there's lots of different corrupt countries that don't have individual protections like you do in say the US, for instance. Actually including Australia. Australia has less protections for the individual than say a place like the US, which is interesting because I'm in Australia. Well, that's it, guys. I mean, that's the uncomfortable truth from my perspective, and I think I see a lot of these comments about things about people making commentary about what they think happened and what their opinions are, and I think you kind of have to go through an experience where you have been defrauded or manipulated, and you look back and you go, whoa, I didn't really see that until after the fact. Well, guys, that's it for now. I'll probably do another video in a while. Good to see you, and I'll catch you at the next one. Bye.